So, in this next part of my timeline, I'm going to talk about one of the stupidest decisions I've ever made. Uh, I was young and foolish and subconsciously wanted to prove that I could be attractive, that all of these guys over the years who had rejected me and stomped on my self-esteem, I wanted to show them that they were wrong, that they missed out, and I had just this bitterness towards men in general because of all of the rejection and hurt. And so my moral compass was not very good at this for several years there in my 20s. I just didn't care enough about the consequences of my actions towards other people, and I guess I felt like the male population in general deserved whatever I gave to them because of what they'd done to me. So, when I left off on the timeline, I had broken up with the one who apparently thought I was the one. Anyway, but before I broke up with him, I cheated on him. Like I said, moral compass, not very good in those days. And it just so happens that the guy I cheated on him with was the same one that I had cheated on the older man with. When we got together then, he was with an older woman, and we basically just had a very short fling before we both decided to go back to the people we were with. Well, a couple of years later, I ran into him while I was at work at the mall one day, and he was single. I wasn't, but I wanted to be. And, I mean, this guy, he was really good looking. And he had this kind of swagger about him that was really attractive. And I was young and dumb. And so I got with him again. And this time, we decided we wanted to be together. Well, I didn't know this guy all that well, but at the time when we started seeing each other again and, moved in together even, he was definitely unlike anyone I'd ever dated before. He came from a large, poor family in Logan County, and he had been in prison for 4 years for robbery, I believe. And I'd never dated an ex-con, and I was naive and inexperienced, and a part of me felt like I could show him a better life, a better way to live, and I tried. we had a very volatile relationship, at least as far as, I mean, I'm a passionate person. He was too, I guess. But I think there was a whole lot of adrenaline going on in the relationship for both of us. And I was in denial a lot, too, about the little hints that kept dropping that I should have clued in on a lot earlier than I did, as far as, it wasn't just a matter of his upbringing and, you know, being shown a better way to live and an honest way to live would suddenly make him, or eventually make him see the light and, become an upstanding citizen, whatever. He had a different way of thinking. He felt like nobody, or he apparently felt like nobody deserved to have more than he did, whether they had gotten it through hard work and scrimping and saving or not. He made the comment to my brother once, when talking about stealing something from someone, well, they're not better than me. Why should they have that, whatever it was, and I don't? And so it was a mentality that I was never going to be able to change. And he was also extremely jealous and possessive. And he even, when we had a fight about, we were at a club because we like to go dancing and stuff, we like to go out. One night I think I danced with a guy, danced with some other guy, and that really set him off, and we had a big fight, and at some point he came into my work and was really threatening and even scared my coworkers. And I should have been done with him then and there, but it took him, well, I don't even know, I have no remembrance whatsoever of what caused this particular incident, but it ended up with him holding me down on the bed, putting a pillow over my face, and pressing down on it to where I could not breathe. And he was extremely strong. He had worked out in prison for 4 years, had the muscles to prove it, and no matter how hard I struggled, I could not get the pillow off my face, and I actually thought I was going to die. That's the only time in my life where I have been that close to death that I actually thought I was going to die. And at the last second, he let the pillow up, and that was it for me. I mean, he had hurt me a little physically before, like bent my arm behind my back once. That's the only time I can remember, but his temper was so violent, and we already weren't entirely getting on by that point, and I think he actually started seeing someone else before we broke up, which, what can I say about that, But, that incident was just the last straw. And I moved out. But I was very, very shaken by that ordeal. And even though I knew it was best to be away from him, I was attached. Like, I can't really explain why I was attached. I mean, um, people sometimes have a hard time understanding why that a battered spouse has a hard time leaving the person who's doing the battering. It's just hard to make a change in your life when you're living with someone and you've been with them for quite some time. I think he and I were together maybe a year and a half, which doesn't seem like much, but for me that was a long time. And but anyway, it's just the change, the big change. It's hard to tear yourself. It's hard to let go of what you used to have, when it was good. So anyway, I stayed at my mom's for a few weeks, and then I moved in with my grandmother, and I was there several months. And the situation, the whole thing traumatized me to the point where I felt like I needed to go back to church. As I may have mentioned before, the recidivism rate is very high because if you've really, really ever been a serious believer in that faith, you're basically brainwashed at a certain point, and it's very hard to break free from that. So at this time, I was still in that mindset. I believed that what I had just been through was a result of me straying from the right path. And so I felt like I needed to get back on the right path. So I went back. And well, I don't know how much I feel like going into that story right now, but let's just say I was only in for a few months before the doubts started creeping in, as far as, was this the whole truth, the only truth, nothing but the truth. As an adult, my eyes were more open, and as an adult who had lived outside the faith for several years also, and but while I was in, I brought my wayward cousin back also, and a friend of mine kept inviting him to come, and he ended up staying. Decided that it was the right path for him, which that's fine. I do believe it's the path that works best for a select percentage of the population. Um, but I think I only lasted maybe a year before I left again, and then eventually found my my way out of the brainwashing, which I've talked about already. Very strange time in my life.